Step one, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step two, get some good, some food in you. Step three, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step four, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Good morning. Welcome to Good Morning Crypto, where we turn your early hours in the morning into your edge and financial freedom. Today, I've just got the one headline. It's kind of a two-parter. Goes into the UK and their thoughts on stagflation worries and kind of what they're seeing in their economy. And I know it's something that Piper's brought up before. And I've been talking about the possibilities of stagflation for quite a while, especially since we saw all the money dumped into the system from COVID, and we've been dealing with the repercussions of that ever since. And it's definitely been something that's been on my mind. I know we've been having sticky inflation, and that's no different than anywhere else, and we're just going to have to watch things and see how they go in 2025, because more than just the fringe people on YouTube now are talking about stagflation. So we'll dive into that after we go through the intro. I've got the stock heat map pulled up. We got a little bit of a move to the upside on Friday. We got Apple sitting up a 1.88% from Friday, and in the pre-market up 0.14. We've got Nvidia up a 3.8% from Friday, and in the pre-market doing nice as well, up 0.72%. We got Berkshire Hathaway up 0.86% in the pre-market, sitting up a 0.16%. We've got Amazon doing nicely as well, up a 0.73%, and the pre-market up a 0.04% right now. It's been wavering just a little bit in the pre-market so far. We got Eli Lilly up big from a new drug that got approved by the FDA, up 1.35% from Friday and up 1.53% in the pre-market right now. We do have Tesla taking back some of the gains that it had made, down 3.46% in the pre-market, taking back some of those losses, up 1.18% right now. So we've got ExxonMobil as well doing all right. It is up 0.34% in the pre-market, though. It is taking back some of those gains. It is down 0.12%. We've got Microsoft sitting down just a smidge, down 0.1%, and in the pre-market is sitting neutral, going from about 0.1% positive to about 1.1% negative. We do have Meta, which is sitting down from Friday as well, down 1.73%. And the pre-market taking back some of those losses, up 0.49%. We've got Google doing pretty nicely as well, up 1.72% from Friday and up 0.5% right now in the pre-market. Crypto is looking pretty green right now. We've got Bitcoin up 0.79%. We've got Ethereum up 1.74%. We've got BNB up 3.78%. Solana's doing nicely as well, 1.53%. We've got Shiba Inu taking back some losses, up 1.26%. TON sitting up 1.41%. We got Chainlink being the winner in that top 10, up 5.1%. Got Avalanche up 0.88%. Tron is sitting up at 2.1%. Dogecoin is sitting up 0.68%. And Cardano is up 1.49%. Let's hop over to the economic calendar real quick. We don't have a whole lot coming out at the beginning of the week. Basically, for this Monday, we do have the Chicago Fed National Activity Index. That will be a light market mover, nothing too heavy. We do have a Canada coming out with GDP month over month, and their PPI won't be a heavy market mover. For the rest of the data, the GDP might give the market a little bit of a boost. We do have later in the week coming out tomorrow at 8:30 durable goods order month over month, and that will be the big one before the holidays. We do have new home sales as well coming out tomorrow, and new home sales month over month. So those two combined will be the big one before we really get that big market that big market close for Christmas. And we'll kind of see if it breathes any breath into the prices before we get to that holiday where we might see a little bit of some sell-off in crypto. Hopefully we can get a little pump before that though. We'll have to take a look at that Bitcoin chart here in a second. I do have the fear and greeds pulled up. Stock market still sitting in fear. No change, 28 and fear. Out of extreme fear, though, they were sitting in extreme fear at the start of the day on Friday. We do have crypto down 3 points and sitting in greed. Just medium on that greed side of things. So nice and cooled down as we got that little bounce from 92,000. Let's hop over to the liquidation heat map real quick. Take a look at where the liquidity lies. We do have some to the top side of us, which is the hotter spot. Going to be at 96,623 and going all the way up to 97,000. We do have some liquidity sitting to the bottom side of us around that 93 range. Going to be a lot lighter of a hot spot though. If we zoom it on out to that 3-day, kind of get a broader view of things, we do have that same liquidity stacking up to the bottom side of us at 93.35. And then for the top side, that's where most of the liquidity still lies. We do have some at 98,000. And again, right below 100,000, we have some sitting at 99,600. Zooming on out just a little bit more, take a look at that 2-week, and you can kind of see when we really zoom out to that higher time frame, there's not much hot spots of liquidity sitting to either side of us. We do have some up here at that 108,000, right at those highs, and then some down here at the lows at 92.1. There are some in some light hot spots on the way up, nothing too crazy though. 99,000. We've got one again at 102, and then again up here at 105. So kind of those spots where we saw rejections or spots where we saw bounces off of. But most of that liquidity is going to be up at the top side of things. And that's how things are probably going to play out for a little while until we really shoot back up there and take that liquidity out on a move to the upside. Let's say hello to the chat real quick. I do see Crypto Billy in here. Good morning, Crypto Billy. We've got French Toaster in here saying good morning with the coffee cup. And he says it's 4 degrees outside. Crypto Billy says, I think it's 34 here. Colder than usual, no doubt. Here it is 34 degrees as well. A lot warmer than it was on Friday. It was like 14 degrees out, so I'm enjoying the slight warmer weather. I think we're topping out at 50 today. Got Darren Does Things in here. Good morning, fam. We've got Randy A Bite in here as well, saying good morning. we've got Crypto Billy saying, winter is coming, be cash heavy, keep your job, hodl BTC. Great advice there. Uh, Darren does things saying, today's going to be a good day. It most definitely is. I've been enjoying the time I've been having off work and watching the charts very heavy, waiting for the moves to come. So let's hop into that real quick. We've got us sitting above our golden pocket where we got a slight bounce off of on this yesterday's morning. We've been moving back up to this 50% line on our retracement, sitting at 96,000, where we're looking to turn things into some support. We do have some outflows coming in. It is still red, but they are slowing down. As you can kind of see, if I zoom this in just a little bit, you've got those outflows that are, ooh, let me move it over a little more so you can really see that. There we go. Oh, I moved the MACD over on top of that. I don't know why it did that. There we go. Let me move that over so you can kind of, my head was in the way. There we go. As you can see, our money flow is slowing down on that outflow. So definitely something we are wanting to see, especially if we're going to get this pre-holiday pump. We've got 2 days to really get it before a lot of people aren't going to be paying attention to the markets. They're going to be spending time with family like most of us will be. And I definitely won't be paying attention to the markets on Wednesday. Probably won't be paying attention much on the weekend either. So kind of the slow time to really allow those markets to move sideways. And this is the time where we want to see that liquidity really switch up and get that holiday pump. Otherwise, there will be no holiday pump. And that's where we're going to have to zoom into those lower time frames to kind of see where the liquidity lies. But as you can see here on your prime oscillator, we just ticked to the green on the prime oscillator after creating a divergence. So plenty of room to the upside if we can switch that money flow. We do have your MACD, which just crossed the indicator line as well. It is sitting on the bottom side of zero though, so going to really need that liquidity to come in here and rescue things if we're going to see that move to the upside. If not, this 50% line on the fib retracement could be a rejection point, and we come all the way down here to some prices that I was looking at. We do have that 90,000 line, which I have drawn out. That's a 90,890, kind of a little swing range depending on what exchange you're going on. From Coinbase, it was 90,910. Some other exchanges were a little bit lower than that, but that's sitting right above that platinum pocket. We do have several bounces off of it back here, and then we got rejections off of it when we moved on down and got this red candle back here. So definitely a spot of interest, and there's a order block right in this range as well. If we end up losing this, I do have some bottom side targets sitting around 86,700 that I don't necessarily want to see, but I'll definitely be clicking the buy button on. So let's zoom it on in to that hourly chart and see how that liquidity is looking, because that's going to be what rescues us. You do have it going light green on that hourly, but we are getting some slight topping signals here on the prime oscillator, getting some curvature, which indicates that we might see a slight drag back down to the downside. And if that liquidity keeps up, we might continue the push to the upside. It's looking like with the MACD as well, you're getting a little bit of some sideways movements. So saying a short-term pullback before a continuation is definitely a move to be looking for. especially as we watch some of that liquidity start coming back in, but the higher term time frames are on that selling pressure. Let's zoom it on in just a little bit more to that 15-minute to kind of see what the morning is looking like. As you can see, the 15-minute is sitting nice and green. We do have that prime oscillator, which is sitting red though. So going to need to see that continuation pattern really come into play if we're going to keep seeing that liquidity coming back in and start bleeding onto those higher time frames. We just need to make a higher low here on your 15-minute, and it looks like that might be what we just did. We've got the low here, the low here, a slight low here, and continuing that trend up here. But with how toppy it's kind of looking, we might see another reversal signal start playing out right at that 50% line, and that's where that higher term, it kind of lines up with that hourly chart, and we might get that slight pullback before a continuation unless we get some crazy money flow coming in. If we are able to turn this 50% line into some support, it's a very quick move on up to about 98,000, where some of that liquidity was lying on that liquidation heat map, and we would need to turn it into some support. We rejected off of it back here, and then again when we saw weakness, we really weren't able to turn that 98,000 into any support. And then it's the move up to our next pocket, the 382, and that 99,000, about 500 range. That's kind of what I would hope for if we can get the move to the upside and continued liquidity coming into the markets. If we're not going to see that, I did tell y'all the bottom side targets that I had looked at was a 90,000 for that first one, and I would expect to see a lot of pressure, buying pressure coming into the market around there, especially since there's heavy order blocks from back here. If we zoom it on back, you've got heavy liquidity sitting in this range where there's lots of orders going in both directions. So it'll be a battle in that range to see who takes control. I did see the chats moving. Let's see. Got Retro Mike Tech in here with the $10 super chat. Thank you, Retro Mike Tech. Hope you are having a great morning. We got French Toaster saying, Jesse, I'd say good morning, but it's the afternoon for you, right? Oh, Jesse Gulak must be in here as well. Good morning, good morning. We've got Moho in here as well. Good morning, Moho. We've got, let's see, Moho saying happy Monday to Jesse Gulak. We've got Alexandra G in here saying good morning. Good morning, good morning, Alexandra G. We've got Dante Cabrera in here as well. And let's see, Arsan246 coming in as well. Ooh, look, there's Mark Dutch as well. Good afternoon from the cloudy gray Netherlands. Searching YouTube to find some rays of sun. Well, hopefully, if we can have a little bit of liquidity coming into the markets, you'll get some rays of sunshine here in your markets as well. Otherwise, you're just going to have to depend on YouTube to bring you some rays of sunshine, even though the news might not be amazing. We've got Arsan246 saying, Soul, the bleeding won't stop. And that's something I definitely talked about on Friday. And I've got the soul chart pulled up in the background, which I will touch on right after I touch on this news that I had looked on. But first, let's take a quick look at Bitcoin dominance. I was taking a look at that this morning. We've got it right at a point of resistance. We're right here where we got some bounces off of it to go above that 60%. We're sitting right in that same range. We're going to need to see that money flow coming into Bitcoin or a continued sell-off on some of these alts to really see that Bitcoin dominance and maintain its strength. It does look like it is in a uptrend though. So as you are seeing these lower prices, Bitcoin is maintaining some of its dominance, which has kind of been an indicator that alt season is still a ways off. I know Piper talked about that on his show on Friday. So sitting right below that platinum pocket on an extension where that's about 59.5%. So definitely a point of contention that we need to get above. Let's hop over to this news article real quick before I really hop into the rest of the charts. We've got Britain's economy flatlines in third quarter on services production slump. The UK's quarterly gross domestic product was unchanged in 3 months to September after expanding in the last 2 quarters. Final data from the Office of National Statistics showed Monday. The ONS downward revised both the second and third quarter readings by zero point 0.1 percentage points from 0.4 to 0, respectively. 9 out of 20 subsectors recorded growth in the third quarter, down from 11 in flash estimates. In particular, there was no growth in the services sector compared with the first estimates of 0.1%, while retail trade, except for motor vehicles and motorcycles, jumped 1.4%. Financial and insurance activities emerged as the top laggard with 0.6% contraction. The decline in production sector also accelerated to 0.4% from the preliminary of 0.2%, largely driven by a 2% fall in electricity, gas, steam, and air conditioning supply, and a 0.1% drop in water supply, sewage, water management, and remediation activities. Additionally, manufacturing slipped 0.1%, while mining and quarrying edged down 0.3%. At the same time, the construction output growth estimate was lowered to 0.7 from 0.8% after 3 straight quarterly falls. Sorry, let me get a drink of water real quick. The main contribution to the increase came from infrastructure new work, which expanded 2.1%, while private housing repair and maintenance declined 6%. On a yearly basis, the British economy grew 0.9% against the preliminary reading of 1% expansion and the previous 0.7% gain. Moving forward, the Bank of England warned of a weaker than expected growth at the end of 2024 as it slashed its fourth quarter GDP growth forecast to 0 from 0.3%. The central bank's board is split between the hawks, who are concerned about inflationary pressures, and the doves, who are worried about growth risks, prompting the BOE to retain its wait and watch approach on monetary policy changes. And this is some of the same stuff that we're noticing in the United States as well. We are at that same point where after this last cut, Jerome Powell talked about how he wants to wait and see as well. And yes, we have different sectors that bring us strength, whereas the UK is more oil dependent, and we produce the oil when these prices are decreasing, which is what we've been seeing. Oil has been struggling against a strong retracement line on the Fibonacci's, and we've been seeing that keep coming down and not maintaining any strength, which is another sector of the US that has been struggling. We've been seeing some of our production, some of our housing also decrease, and this is what we're seeing not just here, but in the UK, in Canada, and a lot of these Western countries. We are slowly at that point where inflation is very sticky, our production is down, our unemployment is high, and it kind of signals some risks of stagflation, which is what this article, it's more headline. There isn't a whole lot of meat and potatoes in the article, but it says the Bank of England can't ignore UK stagnation market talk. And this is something that we will be discussing more and more as we go into 2025 and we see how the markets are really playing out. They are in a cutting cycle as well. They have been pausing for quite a while. And this is something that we're probably going to be seeing here in the US as we see some of certain sectors get hit, uh, especially after the holiday money goes away and there's not all of the sales in certain industries like the housing, which we did see a lot of after the hurricane repair, and a lot of car sales after the hurricanes as well. That's going to be going away. Your holiday buying of presents is going to be going away, and we're going to get a real outlook of what our 1% decrease on the federal interest rate is really going to be looking like, especially with the new economic policy shift under Donald Trump. Let's hop over to some of these alts real quick. I did have Sol that I was going to be looking at. If anyone has anything else they'd like me to take a look at, please go ahead and drop that in the chat for me, and I will get that pulled up. I did have a few TradFi things I wanted to look at as well, so we can take a look at some of those before we do those alt requests. I did see Al Jr. coming in here saying good morning. We do have the Dusty Hunt in here saying like a button smashed. I appreciate that. Let's see. And Jay Violet in here as well. Good morning, good morning. Arsan246 saying alt season off or done and dust it. That is the puzzle. I think alt season is not coming for quite a while, especially as we do see it move when Bitcoin moves, but when you see the Bitcoin dominance staying at such a nice point and retaining some of its strength in some of these sell-offs that we've been seeing, it kind of signals that altcoin season is quite a ways off. I've also talked about before how altcoin season might be very, very different than any of the altcoin seasons we've seen before. As you've seen in the past couple weeks and about a month, the altcoins that have pumped were things like XRP. We saw ADA pump. We did see a few other established projects pump as well. And I feel like this is more what we're going to see coming into our real alt season, especially since there's a rotation of capital that is negated with TradFi, and then anybody that's coming in that has been in before or is coming in new with retail will be looking at those projects that they've heard about. And they've heard about XRP, they've heard about ADA, they've heard about Doge. All these projects that have been around will most likely, in my view, be the ones that end up getting that pump. And we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But if what we've seen from the alt movements so far is any indication, some of those narrative driven pumps are kind of going away. And we are looking at those established projects that have been around to really get those moves during the alt season. We have Jesse Gulak saying, where was it? Long limits order set at 92,270. First small one, and launching more soldiers at 89,780. And my total cray cray. Nope, I had a target that I had talked about It was a little lower than that. I talked about 90,000 and then 86,000. So definitely not nothing too crazy there. Definitely good buying points as well. Jesse Gulak saying still hot in Australia. Jay Violet says it's finally cooling down. Let's see. We've got Al Jr. saying, well, Miami feels just right about now. Hopefully, y'all get some nice weather. It's looking like it's going to be 50 here on Christmas. I was hoping for snow, but I guess that's not going to be a thing for me. He says, Jesse Gulak says, oh, but it's snowing or clear sky. I'm not sure who that was to, but let's scroll down a little bit. We've got, damn, where do you live, Frenchie? You can, and can I store my food at your place? My freezer is full and I've got more stuff. He said it's 3 degrees there. Yeah, definitely can use the outside as a freezer there. Let's hop over to that alt, that Soul that I was looking at. I didn't see any alt requests there. So I've had Soul that I was looking at this morning, and I had talked about some of what I was not wanting to see from Friday, but what I thought we were going to see, and that was a pullback down to this resistance line from back here. And that was going to be a break of the golden pocket. And as you can see here, we've broke below our 50% line on a fib retracement. We got a quick bounce off of our golden pocket before we rejected at the 50 line on this fair value gap that was pulled from the daily. And there's still decently red outflows looking at this on this daily on Sol. And this is definitely what's going to keep sending things a little bit lower, especially as you can see when we get the moves down. It looks like we might get a little bit of reversal, and it ignores all of it, and it's just some like breath into the market before it continues that downtrend. We are getting some oversold signals, but no reversal signals yet again. So really waiting to see where that footing is, and I think it's going to be down here on the bottom side of our fair value gap around this support line, which means that we would end up losing this golden pocket, which is sitting at 179.55 cents, and coming all the way down to the bottom where we've got $162 and about, nope, it's pretty much spot on at $162. We do have that platinum pocket, which is sitting right below it, where if we do come to the bottom side of our fair value gap and have this trend line, which is sitting right below that, and the platinum pocket as well, I do think we get some play on that platinum pocket, especially if the liquidity is going to be staying red on those higher term time frames, and we get that touch at 156. We'll kind of have to see how much sell-off we really get on it. You know, we did get a big move for Solana when the rest of the market really wasn't moving. And to see a retracement that is decently big on some alts that don't have the same TradFi pressures that Bitcoin does is definitely something that is quite plausible. As you can see here, we do have our money flow sitting still kind of red on our 4-hour as well. You are getting to the point where you're about to see some topping signals on your prime oscillator. This divergence that is showing up doesn't really look like it has a whole lot of breadth in it right now. So really going to need to see that liquidity switch over and start being inflows to boost that price back up to this 196 range, and really make that move out of our fair value gap. But as you can see here, we've got multiple touches here on the midline of this fair value gap, which looks to be resistance. So really sending things to the bottom side, especially as we're getting those topping signals and the MACD looking like it's going to start moving sideways again on the 4 hour. If you zoom it on in, take a look at that 1 hour. You do have those topping signals that I was talking about on the 1 hour as well. Liquidity was looking a little bit green, so definitely something we like to see. We'll have to see how much that liquidity can really overpower some of that selling pressure on Sol and move things up to the upside. We will need to turn this midline into some support if we want to continue that move to the upside, though. If not, it's going to come down, and it's going to come down quite hard, especially since the bottom side of that fair value gap is such a juicy price to scoop some more Sol up at $162. We do have those topping signals on your prime oscillator. Your MACD has some topping signals as well, moving sideways right above that zero line. So getting that same curvature that we're seeing on our prime oscillator, which just ticked to red as well. If you zoom it on in just a little bit, take a look at that 15-minute. It does have some of that same green liquidity that Bitcoin had, and it's just a sideways move, which is not really what you want to see when you're having that heavier liquidity coming in and buying things up. You want to see that there's not that resistance selling pressure against it when you're getting that green side liquidity, especially when we're coming up to these important ranges like this. You got a heavy tick up on our 15-minute and just bounced off of and rejected off of this 50% line. We got some selling pressure, which just ended up ticking us down to the bottom side of the golden pocket before a quick move back up to our 50% line on our fair value gap and really rejecting off of it. So just kind of moving sideways in this range, and if this liquidity is going to start running out here and unable to overpower these bears, then that downside target would be what I'm looking for. If we do have the green liquidity coming in on those higher term time frames, though, like that hourly chart that I'd show you, if it is able to maintain some of that buying pressure, you might see some of those top side targets being hit. And that was that $195 that I'd really want to see after we turn that 50% line on our fair value gap at $186 into some support. Let's take a look at some of the TradFi that I was taking a look at this morning. You do have gold looking quite ugly. It rejected off of a trend line that I've had drawn out for a few months now. You are seeing that prime oscillator, which is ticking down super hard. It is very red, as well as that liquidity, which just got to that point where it's hitting light green. You do have a divergence as well that is aligned up from here to here, which is playing out quite right here, but is looking like it's got some more downside to it. And looking at that $2,604 to really be that point where we might see a little bit of a bounce. We do have plenty of room to the downside, though, because if you look back here, this is all very negative space and allows for some more testing of prices before we kind of move on up. I don't think we end up seeing that $3,000 gold by the end of the year anymore, especially with how things have been playing out. You have the Dixie being the strongest it's been in 2 years, and that's kind of keeping things in the bond. You've got the bond market, which has been strengthening a bit. As you can see down here, it's all green from the short-term time frames all the way to the 30-year are all ticking back up on that buying, especially with the dollar being the strongest it's been in 2 years, and our money supply, which has been increasing ever so slowly. So gold is getting that sell off as well. So let's take a look at the NASDAQ. As I had talked about on Friday, there was a CME gap that I had my eye on, which we ended up closing when we ended up getting that big dump from our data and our interest rate decision. I do see us pulling back a little bit more as we're getting nice curvature on our MACD and our prime oscillator as well, and our money flow being extremely red here. Looking for another little touch at the bottom side, which is about 19,480 to really see that bouncing point. We did see heavy buying pressure down below this, as this was all negative space from back here. We got heavy buying pressure, which really bolstered things back into the range that we very quickly lost. So might need to pull up a fib retracement real quick to kind of see where those other points would be. We do have the 50% line, which is sitting at 19,405 if we end up losing the CME gap and trying to fill some of the negative space back here. So if not, we got that bounce on the golden pocket back here, which could be another move to see, especially if we don't get that holiday rally, which is something that's been talked about quite a bit. Let's hop over to the S&P 500 real quick. And as you can see, it got some of the same play that the rest of the TradFi markets did. We ended up closing a CME gap, but still have another large one open above it. We didn't quite get to the 50% on that CME gap when we dropped down below our Fibonacci extensions. We've now pulled back up to the 236, and we're sitting right on the 50% line of this CME gap up here. We do have the red money flow as well, the same curvature on our prime oscillator and MACD, which could indicate some more downside before we really get that move to the upside. You have the bottom side of the CME gap for the S&P 500 being 5,917, and you've got heavy buying pressure below that as we got some wicks here. There's a little bit of some sell-off pressure. This is a giant order block between these CME gaps. So really going to need to see how things start out at market open, especially since there's no heavy data today. That could really send markets in either direction, and it's going to basically be liquidity that moves the market. That's kind of where we've seen some of our big seven on the stock side of things getting some slight moves to the upside, but we'll kind of have to see how that plays out on the crypto side of things. We have Banana Republic at 2039 saying the pump may as well begin today, and it could, and that's something that I've definitely had my eye on, but I do have my eye on some slight downsides before we really get that move to the upside, especially with how liquidity is sitting on some of these higher term time frames and has been faltering on those 1 hour charts. It has been green on the 15-minute on a lot of these assets, but has been unable to really maintain that on the higher term time frames. So if anyone did have any alt requests, I'm not seeing any. I do have something else I could take a look at as well on the TradFi side of things, and that was the Russell 2000. And this is our risk on asset for the TradFi side of things. And as you can see, it got a bigger move down than the rest of those TradFi assets, except for gold. Gold got a massive move down, but as I had said, a lot of that is play on how strong the dollar is, which we'll take a look at in just a second. We ended up closing our CME gap up here, and then on the move to the downside closed the CME gap here and the CME gap here, and we are now sitting below it, and we've got a fib line which is sitting right below us at $2,203, which kind of fills all of this negative space back here, and is definitely a point where we could come back down to extremely quickly before getting that continuation. And we would want to see us maintain some of the strength on the price at 2,260 before we can really see us move on to the upside, because that's the bottom of that CME gap and has been a rejection point from here. And again, when we got the little move to the upside, it was our rejection point. So really going to need to see that turned into some support. I see Jussie Gulek saying Frax shares, please. Is that a crypto that I need to take a look at? I'm gonna take a quick look at the Dixie. As you can kind of see here, we are sitting in a range that we haven't been in since November 22nd of 22. So definitely a point where we're looking to maintain some strength, especially since we haven't been here in about 2 years. And this is what we really want to see for the dollar, especially going into some contraction phases in the economy. And the rest of the world, we want to see that strong dollar, because that will give us a little bit of some bolstering against some of the negative effects of the economy. But as you can kind of see, we are getting some reversal signals on the prime oscillator. Your MACD is looking like it's hitting some faltering as well. So if we end up pulling back just a bit, I would want to see this $107.50 turned into some support before we really come back up here and try to turn this 236 into some support, which we were unable to get to. So more of a longer term thing on the dollar that I was kind of taking a look at. I would look at it being over the rest of this month, kind of moving on up to the 236 and that 108.80. We had Horizon Zen. Yes, it's a crypto. So let me get that pulled up and see if I can find it. We've got Zen. And then, was there a certain exchange you were wanting me to look at that on? I did see Injective asked by Baba Yaz. I will take a look at Injective right after I take a look at Zen. And then we have username saying, how's Near and Injective doing? Have not looked over the weekend and too lazy to look right now. Well, I'll take a look at both of those before I wind the show down. I did see LBC in here as well. And then Dan A was asking, what chart is that? I'm assuming he was asking on the Russell. So that was the Russell that I saw your chat on. So I'm pretty sure that was on the Russell from when you were asking that. Let's see. He said Coinbase. So here's the Coinbase chart. Let's zoom it on out. Take a look at the daily. It's all big green candles to the upside, sir. Oh, You just get all of the good moves, don't you there? Let's take a look, zoom it on out even more. Yeah, kind of at some points where we're at some lows from back here. So let's see where we could kind of lie. Let's draw out some horizontal lines on some support and some resistance, and get the other one in there as well. Let's make sure that those are red so that we know the resistance. And then let's zoom it on in and kind of see where we could get a little move on some shorter term time frames. I will draw out a Fibonacci extension since we haven't really been here in a while. Got to move up to the move down. And look at that, right at the 1618 there. So definitely a point that we're wanting to see some strength made, and it's looking like it's getting a slight pullback to it. We got some touches right off at the 50% line before we got a 382 bounce there. So might need to move that over just a little. There we go. Yep, perfect. And as you can kind of see, we're sitting at right at that 1618 on an extension. If we were able to turn this into some support, let's zoom it on in and see. You do have it moving from red money flow to some green money flow there. So let's see. Red money flow to green money flow on the 1 hour. You've got your prime oscillator, which just ticked to light red as your MACD. Cross your indicator line on the top side of things, so indicating that it's still got some room to run, which is definitely plausible if the rest of the market is going to be moving a little bit down, and this project moved to the upside while everything else was moving to the downside. There's plenty of room to run there. You do have the $38, 37, yeah, 38 and 7 cents being a point of heavy resistance, which we have not been at in quite a while. So if we are able to maintain this 1618 here, I'd really look for that move to the top side at around $38.73. We are getting some overbought signals, but this reversal signal here right at our support line was completely ignored and boosted straight through that 1618. Kind of would need to get some a sure topping point on before we can kind of get some of those bouncing point targets on. So looking like you like those big explosive projects there, Jesse. Let's see what else we had near and injective. So let me take a look at injective first. It has been at some points that I was quite interested in. I had a buying target at, let's zoom on out so we can kind of get that. I had a buy target back here at $22 and about 50 cents. And that was a point that ended up being a little bit too high, but it's still a decent buy, especially since it's such an explosive project. It moves and it moves quick. It creates fair value gaps, which we are sitting right on top of right now. Let me draw that out real quick. We've got a fair value gap sitting from here to here, and we got that little break to the bottom side of our 50% line. Let me recolor those so that you can see their fair value gaps and not CME gaps. And we got some touches on the top side of our fair value gap here. We've got a decent amount of play here. Your liquidity is sitting right at that green point on the prime oscillator. We are getting some indicators that we might get some slight moves to the upside on objective, but overall I would really look at some of these bottom side targets. And I know it's a bit ugly, but we do have this $18.80 at about 90 cents being a point where we could see another touch and play on, especially when you're seeing the daily liquidity being a red, and on outflows you do have this being a reversal signal, but not really getting any oversold signals there. Your MACD is still kind of pointing down on things and is not getting any curvature just quite yet. With the 4 hour looking the way it is, where it's just a light green inflows, we'd really need to see that come in heavy. If it does come in on some of these shorter term time frames, which it's kind of starting to here, but you are getting some slight topping signals. You got some divergences here. The divergences on the bottom side, it didn't really play out much. You got one that kind of played out here as you got the move on to the upside out of the fair value gap, but it just quickly drug back down, and we're starting to see reversal signals, reversal signal, yet to show out. Your MACD just crossed your zero line, but could really drag things down extremely quickly if this green money flow doesn't maintain green. And we'll have to see what that 15 minutes looking like. It's slight green, but it's looking like it's getting a little bit of some curvature to draw back down. It did top out a bit. The 15 minute also is about to be at that point where we're gonna create some divergence here, as you got the move on up, and it's looking to create a slight higher high and getting that curvature as well. So really looking, like I said, with some of the rest of the market, at some more bottom side targets before we really hit that upside target. We have Lunar Beaches saying, gotta get to work. Mad love, fam. Have a great day. You too, Lunar Beaches. We said, Dan A, what's a project you don't own but have been keeping an eye on? W's response. Oh my goodness. I have been having my eye on a vet. That's a project that I've had my eye on. I did own it last year when we got that first kind of explosive move to the upside. I sold back in March, and then haven't held it since, but I keep my eye on it. It's got some potential here if we are able to break some of our more key levels and turn them into some support with the market momentum that it's had to potentially have some good gains. It is on Coinbase, which does help it quite a bit, but I'm really looking for it to really reverse trend. As you can kind of see here on that 4 hour, it is sitting in a downtrend. So lower highs, lower lows, and isn't looking too good yet. Username asking, when BC getting those ribs ready? They are marinating right now. I'm so ready to eat them. They're I used about 4 cups of brown sugar. We got some garlic, some onion powder, some some cayenne pepper, some salt, just a splash of the apple cider vinegar, and they're just marinating for another day or two. I also have some Dr. Pepper barbecue pulled pork, pulled beef sitting in the crock pot right now as well. And that's what I'll be eating on until I go eat some ribs. So I did have Near requested uh marinade for 48 hours. Yeah, it's gonna get the flavor. I'm all about the ribs. Let's take a look at Near before I end up. Oh, I guess it is 7 o'clock, and it's time to get over to Alex O Crypto Show. So thank you to everyone that tuned in today. I appreciate every single one of you. Make sure to tune in to Piper and OC Guy with the morning market report. We do have Markets After Dark. If you didn't check out last night's show, go ahead and check that out. Give it a like. If you haven't hit the like button for me, I would greatly appreciate that. It's a free way to check out the show, to support the show. Also, tune in to Trade Intuition at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. He does a great job teaching the TA. And we have a Crypto Nightcap at 8 p.m. Eastern Time before we go back to Markets After Dark at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Other than that, I hope everyone wakes up and has a good day.